Dari, hello. It is, where are we? Monday, 24th of June, 2024. I guess this is a kind of video that I'm making where I'll be able to look back in the future and say either I fixed all the problems or I had a nervous breakdown. I suppose if I was working in one of those big companies, which I would have been familiar with, it would be the kind of day I'd say go to see my manager and say, look, I just can't cope. There's too much stuff going on. I'm going to need some assistance. Unfortunately, I'm on my own now, so none of that's going to happen. I thought I'd just review it. So this is, in fact, a kind of review of last week's activities, and I'm going to ignore all this. I said in the article which accompanies this, I'm going to ignore all the other factors that have been going on, which there have been an absolute stackload, including teaching work, eBay sales, sports activities, politics, a smorgasbord of meetings like you would not imagine, support in the community, administration, house matters, all those kind of things are not being discussed. We're just going to go for the technical jugular. I thought whilst I was making this video, I put on or get some appropriate music. Cheers, by the way. I've just opened a bottle. To my amazement, I Black Sabbath's not my cup of tea normally, but I thought Technical Ecstasy was a song on the album of Technical Ecstasy, and it shows that my memory is fading because I do remember when the album came out, but I clearly don't remember the fact that there is no track called Technical Ecstasy. Anyway, I've got the favourite track. It's like the softest track for you to listen to. Let's get to the heart of it, shall we? I think this is not exactly political, but to say that it's been a very frustrating week. I'm going to cover these technical issues. First technical issue is that I seem to be at the bottom of a priority list for our village hall project, in the sense that unless some computer infrastructure has been installed, I can't really start my work of customisation. And I feel like I'm at the bottom of the priority list because the electrician's done the work for everybody else, but my work's still outstanding. So I'm just sitting there like a lemon going, well, if he'd done that bit, like I asked him 2 weeks ago, I'd be able to get on with things. But as a consequence, we held a soiree on Friday night, and you'll see in this picture, there's my projector, which you can hardly see in the daylight, my sound Bluetooth speaker, and a laptop here, all producing the AV for the night because the AV isn't connected, can't be connected, etc. We should go into some more detail. So it's very frustrating. Here are the Ethernet sockets that haven't been fully tested yet. My routers and switches are up here. I am quite proud of the fact that we've got BT fibre to the premises, and we've selected a 500 megabit connection. So the way it works, it's not symmetric. It's 500 down, something like 50 up. But that's pretty good. And that's if people are going to do some kind of video editing in the hall, let's say in a class, or we hire it out for that purpose, then it's possible. But I'm proud of the fact that I've got rid of the BT router. So normally you've got an ONT box, which is just out of this picture, where the fibre comes in, and then from that box, there's an Ethernet gigabit link to the BT router, which just plugs into an Ethernet socket at the back of the BT router. And it negotiates PPPoE from that router to the BT network. Now, I have managed to find out the Israeli password, and I've configured the MikroTik to do all of that and get its IP address from the BT network. So there's no need for a BT router. The plan is we're going to put the BT router in a cupboard, and if we have a problem one day with service, we'll get it out and plug it in, and then when the BT operative says, what does the light on your BT router says, we'll be able to advise it still doesn't work. So yeah, the infrastructure configuration is going ahead. The kit's not in the right place. None of the patches are made through. And there's various other issues here in terms of connectivity. I did learn something this week, which is that as an audio person of old, I'm familiar with things like DIN sockets and phono, but in the kind of semi-professional, professional area, we use different connectors. I've never really dabbled with that, but the first thing is that XLR connectors are going to be used in various places in the hall, but there's also Nutric connectors, which I think are maybe called Speak-On connectors. So this amplifier is a kind of industrial amplifier, and at the back it's got these Nutric or Speak-On connectors, and you'll see these are the Speak-On connectors here. So it's all a bit of a learning curve. I was kind of excited that I was going to help wiring them up, but unfortunately the guy did it with somebody else, so I was cut out of the process, which was a bit disappointing. I was far too busy, I think, doing other things. I learned a lot about OpenVPN and VPN systems this week. So for a long time, I've set up, not just for me, but for other people, VPN systems. And that normally involves configuring a Raspberry Pi with Pi VPN. And that sits in the, let's say, the customer's premises. And that allows me to connect into that premises and do some debug if something's going wrong. So I sit here with a config file and my OpenVPN client, and at the target end is the Raspberry Pi with the OpenVPN server. Now, the traditional way of doing that is to do what MikroTik would call, if you've got a MikroTik router at the other end, you're doing a port forward, or a NAT, basically, a network address translation. So you say all inbound traffic to the OpenVPN port, which the default is, I think, is 1194. You can also change that port to make things more secure. Comes into your MikroTik router, then it's NAT masqueraded into the Raspberry Pi, which is running the OpenVPN server. So that's what I thought I would install. That was the policy. I've done it many times. I've got documentation to support that. When I install Pi VPN on the Pi, a test Pi, so I'm using Raspberry Pi 5s now, and I'll come on to that in a second. The interesting thing was that I noticed I could use WireGuard. I thought, in my test environment, let's just test it out, shall I? So I installed WireGuard and not OpenVPN. And what happens is that when you configure that on the Pi, it creates a config file. And you take that config file, and on your, as an example, Mac computer, you install the WireGuard client on your Mac computer, and then you just import the file. And it worked straight away. When I say straight away, you obviously have to create a MikroTik rule saying for the inbound port, take that inbound port and squidge it off to the Raspberry Pi. So you masquerade or NAT that port. So I did that one rule on the firewall, at the boundary firewall, and then I sat at my client system. By the way, the tip is that use a laptop and connect to your laptop using a phone. So then you're on a completely non-home network, and you are definitely on a different network to your home. So I connected to the target network, and it worked first time. I was so surprised, especially because my Googling had told me that WireGuard was possibly a bit temperamental. What's this? MacOS, not MacOS. Oh, the keyboard's not working. That's interesting. There we go. Anyway, then I noticed that under MikroTik's got WireGuard built into the operating system. So I thought, this would be perfect. If the WireGuard could be configured on the MikroTik, then I wouldn't need a Raspberry Pi server. Obviously, Raspberry Pi 5 is a very fast machine, and I worry about the performance, but I thought, let's see if we can get it working. And that's where the problem started. The main problem is that under WireGuard macOS client, if you say configure manually, you've only got a few options to configure, and you can't configure all. I don't understand how it could ever possibly work. So for example, you can't specify the destination IP of where you want to get to. So on your WireGuard client under macOS, you say plus new configuration, and you can put in a public key of the target machine because it's public-private key authentication. That's how the security works. But I couldn't put in a target IP address. So what I ended up doing as a tip is under WireGuard under the phone, I installed WireGuard on the phone, got that working, because that does allow you to put in all these parameters, and strangely. Then on the phone, you can do an export to a zip file. I exported that zip file into the iCloud, Apple iCloud, copied it to my Apple Mac OS, unpacked the zip file. Obviously, these keys on the phone and the IP target IP address is the same, but other parameters on here are completely different. So I had to edit the file that was going to be similar, suitable for the client Mac system that I'm working on, and then imported that file. And guess what? It only flipping worked. I was so chuffed with myself. So that was just a test. I haven't done any speed testing, but it is possible, therefore, to set up WireGuard from your Mac OS system into the MikroTik router. So the benefit of this, of course, is once you've set that WireGuard connection running, you join the target network. And then you can do all the kind of debug things that you might like to do at a low level on that target network. That's the whole point of doing this. Right, so that's the WireGuard story. Yes, the Epson projector. So unfortunately, I wasn't involved in the specification of the connectivity of the projector, so I'm just picking up the loose ends. There you see three candidates that we're going to be voting for here in the UK. They are politicians from left to right, the Labour Party, the Reform UK, and the Conservative Party. Anyway, the projector that's now mounted far too high up on the ceiling, it's kind of about 3 meters up. We notice it's got a LAN port and it's got an HD base T port. It's also got 2 HDMI ports here, inputs. And the question is, how do you get presentations to that projector? So if somebody comes in, they want to do a presentation, they've got a laptop's got an HDMI socket. How do they get the sound and audio out to the hall? This is Wixford Village Hall, by the way. So it turns out, after a lot of research, because this is not made clear in all the manuals, that if you install an app on your phone or your laptop or your computer, be it Windows or Mac, you can, after searching for the projector, you start the app, you search for the projector, you find the projector, and then you press connect. There could be some various security and passwords, but let's say you know all of those things. And then, via the LAN socket only, you can connect to the projector. So then you're sending the video to that projector. Now, in our case, it wouldn't be useful to send the sound, because believe it or not, the sound has to go out of a different channel. So that's a bit problematic, because I'm not sure if the app sends the sound and the video out of that LAN socket, in which case we are screwed. Secondly, there's something called HD base T. Now, again, I haven't got this working because, okay, it's political, so I'm not going to go into why. However, it could be, I've got a diagram here from the manual, eventually found a manual. So the implication is you can buy an HD base T transmitter, meaning that you can, okay, it doesn't show very well. You connect an HDMI cable out of your laptop into the back of one of these units. It converts the HDMI output into an Ethernet output. You connect via then an Ethernet cable, and then the Ethernet cable goes into the HD base T transmitter. I think that's how it works. Again, I haven't been able to test it yet. What you can also do is you can buy a LAN to HDMI, an HDMI to LAN pair. And using that, of course, you buy a pair of devices and you do HDMI to LAN. You make this same connection, and then you do LAN to then you have another box sitting by the projector, which is on the ceiling. And then that converts back to HDMI. So with a pair of these boxes, you could then feed into these 2 HDMI sockets. Now that is in the spec, but that would need 4 boxes, and we've got 1 box, so it's not right. That needs sorting out. I've talked about connectors. I thought I'd just do some showing you. These are XLR connectors, which are kind of useful in the semi-pro audio field. and these Nutric connectors or Speakon connectors. Pi 5 Connect. Okay, so just a line to say that now, so this all starts off with VLC. So VLC had a free program whereby, so VLC is, you can install a VNC, it's not VLC, VNC client, let's say on your laptop, and you install a VNC server on your Raspberry Pi. And via the cloud, you can connect the two. So VNC had a free plan, which I think had up to like three or four targets. So if you're trying to support people remotely, you could use this VNC plan. And overnight, VNC have decided to cancel that plan. I've been sending some emails saying your account's going to be deleted, etc., etc. So Raspberry Pi, bless them, have come up with Raspberry Pi Connect, which is basically a replacement for VNC. So far I've tested it and the speed's appalling, but we'll come to that. So the idea is you install on a Pi with the latest operating system, doesn't work on the earlier ones. You install Pi Connect, which is just a GitHub download. You then have to create yourself a user ID and password at the Pi Connect site. So this is all infrastructure run by Raspberry Pi, nothing to do with VNC anymore, and it only works on a Raspberry Pi. So you install the Connect program on your target Raspberry Pi, and from a web browser on your source system, you do a login. You've previously registered one or more Pis, destination Pi, so it gives you like a little menu with all the ones that you've registered, and it says whether it's connectable, and if it is, you just press connect, and then on your web screen, you get the screen of your remote Raspberry Pi. Now the performance is absolutely appalling, and also font scaling is a bit of an issue because even with my best glasses on, and a magnifying glass in fact, some elements of the Raspberry Pi GUI were totally unreadable, and I've had to remotely change the font of the Wayland server. So if I did connect a screen to a Raspberry Pi, the fonts would be so big I wouldn't be able to see them. Anyway, it's a work in progress. It does provide you with a way to get through to a remote Raspberry Pi system. So that opens a whole gateway of possibilities, because even without a VPN connection into your target systems, if you've got this Raspberry Pi Connect, you can get to a Raspberry Pi system remotely. And then, if you wanted to do some just general debugging around the LAN network, you could do that. You can SSH out of your Raspberry Pi, and you could otherwise run debug programs. So, what I need to be able to do is, for example, to run the MikroTik configuration. Here's remote support. So this is a window showing you the MikroTik Winbox, which is a Windows 32 or Windows 64 program. So if only I could run Windows 32 binary, so Intel x86 or Intel x64 binaries on a Raspberry Pi, which obviously is an ARM-based system. A bit of trouble there. Then I could perhaps run Winbox, and guess what? You can do it. Now I tried off. So first of all, using Box 8. There's two products called Box 86 and Box 64. So those two products would allow you to run Linux x86 and Linux x64 programs. So if you could do that, you could then potentially install Wine, which is the Windows emulator under Linux. And so using this kind of double layer of slowdown, you could potentially run a Windows program on a Raspberry Pi. And guess what? It actually works. Now I've got the links here. The first link is to install Box 86. It's quite a nice tutorial. So I thought it was, in fact, a brilliant tutorial. And the second is to install Wine. And this thing called PiApps, which does the whole thing completely. It installs Box 64, then it installs Wine, and a Raspberry Pi 5. It was going for about 30 minutes. It's thousands of lines of configuration and it's downloading, installing. I thought, what is the chance of this working? Do you know what? It worked. On the second attempt, it worked. I was very surprised and pleased. So I thought I'd include the links there so you can follow that up. It's quite an interesting to do on your test Pi. talking about remote support. So basically, I have got remote support working in test environment I've got here from a completely separate network. I'm sitting on a client system. I do Raspberry Pi Connect into the target system, and then I'm able to start a Windows 64 program, Winbox 64, on that target Pi, running x64 code on the ARM platform, and then I can connect to various MikroTik gear to do network configuration. And the reason is that, you're not just a hero, but you're a fool if you think you're going to be doing firewall configuration remotely on the command line. It's just don't even go there. I mean, I want to see it. I want to see the rules and the chains, and I can do that visually using Winbox. I can't do it using command line. That would just not work. So I don't even think about it. Okay, so Pi 5. So a Pi 5 solution now that is a multi-layered solution for remote support. The plan is to have a Pi 5 for remote support. On the target Pi 5, you're running Pi VPN, and therefore, and Pi VPN is configured to use WireGuard. So the idea would be you'd sit at your home, and you'd go to this remote site, you'd tunnel through the boundary router, which would be telling to route traffic to that Raspberry Pi, and you'd use WireGuard, and then you're into the target network. Okay. Or the fallback is to use Pi Connect from your client home, from your home to get to the target system, and then run Winbox 64. So that's the backup solution, but it's obviously ridiculously slow. In doing all of this testing, and I have noticed that one or more of our web servers and documentation servers keeps falling over, and recently they've been migrated to Pi 5. And I've always been, I wouldn't say a cheapskate, but I've not used the official power supplies because they're quite expensive and it pushes up the overall cost of Pi. You've got 10 Pis or 20 Pis in your house. And each power supply costs £30. That's an extra cost. Plus, where are you going to put all those power sockets, since all our Pis are behind a UPS? And we've got a sort of centralized USB power brick, which has got 20 ports, and then you just take each port to Raspberry Pi. But it turns out the Raspberry Pi version 5 is wanting to have, I've got a link here for lots of interesting information. It needs 5 volts and 5 amps. And I found out that's not part of the USB PD specification. So would you believe it? Raspberry Pi, instead of going, say, with a higher voltage and a 3 amp supply, they've gone with 5 volts and 5 amps. So they produce this special adapter, which is a PD power delivery adapter, but is capable of not only producing all those other voltages like 9 volts, 12 volts, 20 volts, but also special 5 volts. I think it's 5.1 volts, 5 amps. So to try and quickly buy my way out of trouble, I've just ordered a few, because it's a complete pain in the what's it. You can get a free website monitoring tool so that when your website goes down, you can be alerted via email. So I've got that, and so I'm just sitting doing nothing, and all of a sudden I get a message saying your website's gone down, and then I go and check the Raspberry Pi, and it's crashed. And it's crashed because the 5 volt supply I'm giving it does not have the ability to go even up to 3 amps. So I was thinking, is there a way to get around this? And I've done a bit of Googling and more research on Raspberry Pi forums. And some people say in the US you can use this 5 volt 60 amp power supply. It's mind-boggling. And then I found these cables, which are only rated up to 5 volts 3 amps. But I'm thinking, surely they'll just take 5 volts whatever amps. You know why that's completely untrue? I'd really like to get into contact with me, because that's my current plan. So the backup plan is to maybe order this and see if it works. Speaking of backups, I've got to think about the backup plan for the new Hall installation is, and there's going to be a whole smorgasbord of kit there. There'll be a Raspberry Pi, which will be an access point or portal. Could I store the backups on a Raspberry Pi from all the local devices? Somebody loses the Epson projector configuration or the security system goes down, and that all needs to be backed up. So that's what's been happening this last week. It's been, up to here. And on the to-do list is, and this is kind of annoying because these are kind of some of the fun things I want to get into, and I've just had out time. I've got another second-hand hard drive has arrived. This time it's not it's a Hitachi drive. It's got its helium filled. I've always wanted a helium drive just to play with. Still in the box. Haven't opened it yet. We've got cameras to test. They have not been tested because I have had no time. I've got a request to do some. First of all, PoE, Power over Ethernet, power supplying to these Microtics, which I've done before. But we're also going to try and see how we can best optimize the Wi-Fi transmission, so you can get to the absolute furthest distance without any other repeaters or anything. And you may know that the old Microtik now uses a thing called, I think it's called Wave 2, and I might be being stupid, but in the old software, which was the non-Wave 2 software, you had a way of choosing the frequencies that you're specifying, and it would give you a list. So that was quite a nice thing to choose from. Plus, you could shape the frequency. You could shape the curve of the frequency and the attenuation. And on the new one, I don't see how any way of putting that in. So I'm wondering if I can run the old Wi-Fi hard software with this router, and if I forego the X band, so the wider band, the AX standard, would that actually be a better solution? Sort of slower, but greater range. So that's to be tested. This is a dish which we're not using anymore, so I need to just retest that. Again, I'd like to test it to see if I can get a better range, because it was installed in a black spot and now within sight of a tower. And there's also lots of other network kit to retest. So there's a full workload there, as well as the power testing for the Pi that's going to come in soon. So that's it, Darren. That's what I've been doing this last week, and that's what I'll be doing this coming week, as well as all those other things like eBay and politics and the meetings. So yeah, extremely busy, and I guess this video is for my own benefit, and to my imaginary manager, I'm going to say, help, I need I need a helper. I really need a helper. Okay, Darren, good night.